What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the GASO cast. Huge night of basketball last night. Huge weekend for GASO, next gen, successful event. But before we get started, talking about everything that's been happening in the state of Texas, quick housekeeping. G1 series each and every week. Blue, you're working hard behind the scenes. We're close. Teams are still doing tryouts, but we're getting close to rounding that number where we exactly where we want it to be, the sweet spot, to create the best possible product for our teams and players. So keep an eye out for that going forward. March 20th, King of the Court in Duncanville. A lot of program directors were at Next Gen this weekend giving their, verbal commitments to be like, hey, we're there. So we'll probably post a multi-team graphic. We're not going to individually let you know which teams are going to be there because we're catering to every team possible at our event. We're not going to spotlight one specific team and say they're there because that's not fair to another team that's there that wants to show up and play. So that's kind of how we do things at GASO. Two cities, one GASO. Probably our first official super loaded event. Houston and DFW, April 3rd and 4th. Friday, Saturday, Easter Sunday. Nobody wants to play basketball on Easter, so we're going to make sure we deliver a high level product on 2 days instead of three this year. And if you don't hear your name or team today, look at the newsletter tomorrow with a lot more going on. Follow us on social media. We're always rocking it, especially this time of year. We're liable to say anything on social media during game nights, for sure. So follow us on social media where you see us. All right, fellas, let's get into it. Tim, I'll let you sit this one out since you weren't able to make next gen, but you missed a big one, boy. So just real quick, we talked a lot of players and names already on social media. We'll talk more tomorrow on the newsletter. But Blue, Lyndon, what was the vibe? What did you like about the event? Just your initial thoughts on Sunday. Blue.
Competition. Like it's these players are ready to go, and they you do just such a great job, Michael, first of doing the rosters and getting the right matchups and having players show what they can do on the court, and so it shows on the sideline as I'm especially as I'm evaluating these kids. And so they're not afraid of competition. Like we said before, those that want to be alphas, you can see it right away. And I thought that even our coaches did such a great job of getting the kids to move the ball and to move their bodies and to go set screens and to make an extra pass. So that was all great to see. And I think also, one of my initial reactions to everything was, when I just kind of sat back and trying to going on. One thing that if you're a big, you can really set yourself apart in this kind of a camp setting when you play with your instincts and you play with your natural feel or your ability around the basket because you can put up. It's not so much about the points, but it's about showcasing those instincts of blocking and altering shots, running the floor, getting some easy baskets. So on both ends of the court, you can do a lot of damage, and I saw that from some people.
Lyndon.
Yeah, for me, it's kind of a trend right now that I've been picking up more and more on. And that's that, the bar is higher than it ever has been for skill in terms of what prospects are able to do with footwork, with shot making, with dribble weapons, everything. We had Tyler Relf in the building working out these kids, and basically all of them were able to do what he was putting them through, just high level stuff. But the separator for me when I'm evaluating these prospects is the kid who knows how to use these and put these into actual game repetitions. Not somebody who is going to just call their own number repeatedly, but somebody who is able to um, more or less use those dribble weapons, know what time in the game they're going to be able to get their shot, make those kick ahead passes, all that stuff. And those kids, the ones who play with that high IQ, who don't just use the stuff that they've been doing with their trainer or whatever, are the ones who stood out on a very pronounced, big stage. There's 200 kids in the building. There wasn't any bums in there. It was a high level. All 20 teams got after it.
Yeah, for me, I'll finish us off with I was very pleased. Each and every year, it's the one time where there's so many new parents, families, and players that are getting introduced to GASO. You want to do right by every single person. But at the end of the day, it is a showcase. Not every single person is going to get a write up. Not every single person is going to get talked about. But whatever you take away from their driving home, if there's a player that was like, I played really well, they didn't talk about me. Well, you should be very positive in that car ride home because you know you belonged, you know you played well. And it's just trying to get that mindset to switch that it was just one day, one opportunity. But if you grew from it and learned something from it, then your stock rising no matter what. And that's always the message I try to tell parents that are new to all this. Some of them, not confused, they just don't know any better. And I hope they learn something from that whole process. But the vibe was great. You can see the energy. I loved when the players on the bench are cheering for their teammates that they had just met 5 minutes before. That's what you want. You want everybody to be competing. And then you saw players that maybe didn't have a lot of name going in there guarding the guys that they knew the name, like picking them up full court. Air Jackson was obviously a big name that was put on our radar going into this event, and you saw kids trying to make it as hard as for him as possible. At one point, I went over to Air and I was like, "Hey, man, this don't look like Kennemer today. They making you work." And he's like, "Yeah, they are." And he still did his thing, but you just want that competition. The same way I think we talk about the young guys for the NBA All Star game who wants to play hard, and it looks like the 2030s for sure stood out to me that they wanted to compete and play hard. So I was very impressed with that. Blue, you have something?
Oh, I'm just listening, just
Okay.
agreeing. I mean, it was just a competition.
But yeah, very, very excited to incorporate a new crop of players into the GASO and how we do things when we hope to see y'all at some tournaments this year. And I think by the amount of program directors in there saying, "Hey, we're going to be at so and so event, so and so," we're going to see a lot of y'all very soon. So, once again, very pleased with that. We're going to have some more names in the newsletter and beyond to showcase the talent that was in there. All right, last night, regional semifinals. It was a fun night of basketball. Tim, real quick before we hop into some of these segments, can you just break down Delmar Fieldhouse for those that weren't able to be in attendance? You made the drive from San Antonio to Houston.
Man, we were talking a little bit about it off air in terms of just the environment in itself. You had lines wrapped around the building. When I first walked up, I'm like, man, this is exactly where I need to be.
You skipped the
Not only
line?
because
You get to skip the line, or you was in line?
skip, baby.
You know what it is.
Skip, it's like the fast pass, like I'm at an amusement park, and so you get to go up to the front of the line, repping the brand, if you will, and saying, hey, I'm here, and they did a great job, outlining who could be there, who couldn't be there. They don't just allow just anybody to be there, and that was really the good thing because, as you well know now, everybody tries to put their label on themselves, and so they were very, very critical about the whole entrance process, if you will. But to go back to the lines and the environment in itself, you had lines wrapped around the building, which is very, very good to see because that tells you one, the schools are real well represented. Two, there's a high level game about to take place because there's a lot of talent on both teams, and it was just really, really good to see, especially for those kids. Even the two teams that lost in both last night's games were well represented. But just the city of Houston, the way that they kind of embraced what was on hand and what was about to occur, everybody kind of knew what was at stake. Everybody was kind of in there, and so it was really, really a really good environment for everybody.
No, I was so excited when I saw you sent the outside of the gym, and you're like, "I'm here," and we were like, "Oh, this is gonna be great." Um,
Yeah.
let's get into it. Playoffs so far. A lot of this is going to be talked about yesterday, but I want to open this up to whatever your thoughts were. So the first segment today is going to be I was shocked by, and we'll just start with that. Lyndon, I'll start with you. What were you shocked? What are you shocked by so far in the playoffs?
Yeah, looking at last night, it's the big wins out in Region One and 4A. All four of the games, D2 and D1, decisive wins, setting up two really really good regional final matchups. Burt Burnett, one of the top scoring teams in the state, but last night was really impressed with our defense, holding Seminole to under 40 points. Um, took care of business out there. Going to play against one of the best defensive performances that I've watched all season from Canyon West Plains. They only allowed 25 to Fort Worth Southwest in that regional semifinal. Um, in D2, Brock took care of business, beat Canyon Randall 20 plus. Elijah Paez, just continues to boost his stock in the playoffs. And, Lubbock Cooper Liberty. We didn't really get a chance to talk about their win over Crum last week where they took care of business, beat them by 29, I believe. Backed it up, beat Pampa by 29 last night, where Brock, Lubbock, Cooper, Liberty, that's going to be another high-level one out west that we'll get our eyes on this Friday or wherever that those games end up being decided to be played.
Man, Lyndon, I know the non-big metroplex areas love when you are on anything right now because you showed that love for sure. Blue, what are you shocked by?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just the game one of the games I focused on last night was the Alamo Heights versus McAllen game, and the reason why I was shocked because if you would have watched that from start to finish, and anything I say here, I've already talked to the head coach at Alamo Heights, Andrew Brewer. So when I use the word ugly and how did they win, it's nothing new to them. We're sitting there talking, and then the first thing I tell Andrew, I mean, they won 63-59 against a McAllen team that was undefeated. And watching McAllen, you could see why they were. They had good size, they had good quickness, they were fast, they had open lanes in order to get penetration and then kick it out to their shooters. But they were down by 10 at one point. And what's shocking is that they came back to win because there was so little scoring. There was at one point it's 21-11 in the second quarter, and it was the 2:06 mark, and Alamo Heights winds up getting their first field goal in the second quarter to get it within single digits. You move along in the game, all of a sudden they're still like this back and forth. They're trading some buckets, trading missed layups. Like it was, like when I said it was ugly. There's just like they're rushing. Both teams are rushing so much. It came down to a point though that Alamo Heights, Andrew said, Coach Brewer said that he calmed them down by saying, "Stop playing too fast. Stop making the fast the first open look. Let's pass it around a little bit and slow it down to get them to slow down." And what wound up being the turning point, and Coach Brewer said that he went back and he rewatched that film, and it was 1:30 in the morning, and he said the key to their victory was with around 4 minutes left to go, up 7. McAllen decided to start. He knew as a coach, we can come back. Let them make those because you can't hold the ball for 4 minutes. We know that. How many times have we watched somebody pull the ball out, order some type of four corners, or try to get the ball into the right guard's hands so they can get fouled and go shoot free throws? You're gonna make mistakes, and that's where Alamo Heights is able to capitalize. And then all of a sudden, it's 52-52 going into overtime, and then there's like 18 points being put up between the two teams. All of a sudden, everybody wanted to score. So there was a little bit of this up and down roller coaster, scratching of the head. What am I watching? How did they win? All these emotions all in one, and it was shocking that Alamo Heights was able to pick up the pieces and able to hold on and slow their game down in order to win. So that was shocking to me.
Yeah, that game was. I'm glad you were following that game. That was nuts from start to finish for sure. Even at the end of regulation was crazy. If you haven't seen the video Blue posted of the almost buzzer beater to win it.
Oh, and by the way, Alamo Heights squeaks in to get into the playoffs, and now they're in a regional final against San Antonio.
Somebody needs to go find where I said that district every year is like if they battle each other so much that somebody's going to end up getting there, and there's a few teams still left for sure. Tim?
So to touch on that, there's 3 left to be exact.
That's what I thought. I knew. Vets. Yep.
Yeah, we got Veterans Memorial playing against Alamo Heights, and then of course you have
who is it?
You got Veterans Memorial against Alamo Heights, and then you have golly.
I mean, Champion and New Braunfels both. Yeah,
they're both out.
2 D1s, yeah. But Leander Glenn, obviously.
Leander Glenn versus Corpus Christi Vets.
Yeah,
correct.
Took them
so
in a first round matchup.
Yeah.
Yeah. So two out of the 4 for sure. And so, to your point, very, very competitive district. And so I think that kind of bodes well for them in terms of the schedule that they play, like Mike was just talking about in terms of, those guys really being well prepared. But for me, the shocking point for me, going back and looking over the Steele Westwood game, Westwood was 13 of 22 from 3. And when you go back, when you look at the score sheets, when you go back and you look at clips on the film and how that game actually started out, they were on fire. And it wasn't just one kid. They spread it out. They're spreading the wealth and they're knocking shots down. So to shoot 13 of 22 from 3 and be up 8 or 10 and then, obviously, wound up losing that game, I'm sure that they're probably licking their wounds this morning thinking about what kind of slipped away, from that perspective. So that was definitely shocking to see.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, golly. For me, I have a few. First thing I was shocked by is that Isaac Hayes was going to throw the same side lob to Jonathan Fox last night. I mean,
Crazy.
I tweeted that it's a lot. That's a lot of trust. But if you're gonna throw it to one guy, that's the guy. But elite pass, elite finish, the body control from Jonathan Fox. There's a reason why every national media outlet's posting that footage today. The second is I'm shocked that there's less chaos. Lyndon, you and I use this word often, and it's more so a definition of our chaos is upset alert. And right now, our big fish are kind of hanging in there and cruising. And I wonder if that bodes well for some of the dream matchups fans are looking for at the state tournament. As we get to the regional finals, things are starting to still look like they're on path to make some very memorable matchups. But like chaos is always on the other side of the door, so who knows what's going to happen this Friday. But I'm shocked that there's less chaos. And the other thing I'm shocked by was how good Zayson Salano and Anthony Key played on the interior last night in that Atascocita Seven Lakes game because we know about the guards and we know what was at stake. And I personally thought that how gritty and how physical Seven Lakes was, it was going to create some issues. But the Atascocita guards were so good, and then the front line for Atascocita interior. Zayson's known as a scorer from the perimeter, but he's elevated his game as a senior, saying, "I'll do whatever it takes inside first to really set that foundation." Anthony Key Blue, you were higher on that than all of us in your 2028 rankings, and for good reason. He stepped up big last night, playmaking inside the paint and defending. And Isaiah Santos, who I was like, this guy's probably a high vote for Player of the Year. So Atascocita really needed that interior. So I was shocked to see that, but also very proud of those two for doing it on the inside. So moving on, we've seen a lot of ball right now. If the season ended today, we kind of talk about this weekly. If the season ended today, who's your Player of the Year? Blue, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I talked to head coach Michael Thomas over at Beaumont Westbrook, and to talk to him about my pick, and that's Elijah Garrett. Consistency is the first word that comes to mind when speaking about Elijah and how far. Obviously, they have a great team. They have a great setup, and they're trying to go back to back. However, Coach Thomas tells me the reason why Elijah in this team is so good and why he's important is because of his consistency and because of his leadership, others want to follow. It's contagious, he said. And so when you look at his stats wise of what he's done in the regular season and throughout the playoffs, I mean, he's 21 regular season, 21 points a game, 5 assists, 3 steals, 4 rebounds. Then you look at his stats in playoffs: 24 points a game, four assists, four steals, 5 rebounds. And so the consistency there is that as the games are getting bigger, as you get deeper into the playoffs, he is not backing away from challenges. And I think that that's one thing that was key for me is like, you know what? They've won a lot of games in these 2 years, and you have to circle a player, and you wanted a Player of the Year candidate up to this point, Michael. That's mine.
That's a great argument there. Lyndon?
Yeah, and it's Cam Lomax right now. Let's just be honest about it. 47 or 48 last week against Melissa. Continues to just dominate the flow of every game that he's involved in. Red Oak's a really good defensive team, and last night it was Lomax who was getting who was setting the table. Obviously, there's probably a strong consideration for co-MVP or co-Player of the Year with Bryson Howard, with that duo just dominating from start to finish basically every game I've seen them play this year. But yeah, this team's rolling. Got a very good West Mesquite team that they'll see Friday. But like we said, I would love to see if we got the Blues candidate against my candidate in that 5A D1 state title game in a couple weeks.
You know what's so interesting about the Cam Lomax pick? Like, let's give our flowers to Bryson Howard. When's the last time you've seen a nationally 5-star ranked kid go to Duke? Just like, because Cam's putting up big numbers, and we've seen it before. Bryson Howard could easily be like, I need to go match that. But if you watch the games and he's playing the exact same way that he played for Duke to offer him, for him to be at this status. He's not. It just shows what type of great teammate is, because
Yeah.
obviously Cam's on a heater, and he's playing his best basketball of his life, and Bryson's just like, hey, keep doing your thing, kid. I'm gonna keep doing mine, and it's what's made him this great. He hasn't been like, oh man, look at all these videos that Cam's doing. I need those too. No, he wants to win, and that's one of the things I'm paying attention to when you're looking at who's going to be successful at the next level. I mean,
Yeah.
Bryson Howard's going to be successful at the next level because he's dominating a game in a different way. If Cam Lomax and Bryson Howard both like, I need to go get buckets, you might not be looking at this team the same way as a dominant force. So it's just working right now, and they're a very, very dangerous team. So I just want to give credit to Bryson
Yeah, for
Howard as
sure.
well, because Cam Lomax is going crazy, and Bryson's his biggest supporter right now.
Yeah.
Tim, who's your guy?
That's a tough act to follow for sure. We've talked as a staff about it, and so Linden picks one that can be tough to supersede. But a guy that we've spoken about before is Caden Deffenbar, and so the reason why I select him is now you start to look at the other part of his game from a maturation standpoint. What else do you do to bring the level of play up? What else are you doing to impact the game? He goes out and not only has 33, but he also has 18 rebounds to go along with that. So now you're talking about a two-way guy, which we all feel like, he's shown the capability of. But now you're not only going to be able to show the ability to get a stop, now you're going to go complete the stop by getting a rebound, getting on the glass, getting out in transition, doing the other little things that your team needs you to do. So it's not always about putting it in the basket, which he's shown the ability to be able to do. But at this point of time in the season where you're at, it's about the little things that are going to get you over the hump in close ball games and competitive situations. I got to go and go get a rebound because maybe, somebody else is getting extra attention or whatever the case may be. But I got to go and go do that just to make sure, we're solidifying the job.
No, for sure. 33 and 18 is a big boy stat line. For me, I mentioned earlier, there's not as much chaos, so our best teams and best players are still around for the most part. So it's hard. But I'm sticking with my Kensington Candler as long as Little Lum's still involved in this thing. Like I picked him as the preseason one, and Little Lum just continues to do their thing. But I'm also gonna not sneak, but Isaac Hayes. I mean, come on, guys. Every single game, when we're talking about the story, when we're talking about the plays that you make throughout, it's one thing to go just win games, but each game, each moment, there's an Isaac Hayes play that you're like, goodness gracious, look at that. And he continues to do it. So if he continues to do it and he does it at the if he does it back at it gets to the Alamo Dome and does it, who's to say? This North Crowley team's on a run, but there's just every single one of our guys that we're talking about, which is great that they're still in it. And each game you play is on a bigger stage. And like we're not even there's a lot of guys that are like, what about? I mean, there's still some like so before we move on to the next thing, I'm gonna ask y'all really quick, and Tim, I'm gonna give it to you in a second. Um, is there somebody if one of our guys doesn't win a state championship, do you think do you think the player of the year could possibly be somebody that doesn't win state with how loaded it is right now? Thoughts? It's an open. I'm not gonna. Whoever. Somebody talk.
I'd go with Daniel Patton. I thought long and hard about this when you posted the question, and I'm sitting there and I'm just thinking, like, okay, who else has had the impact on a season as much as Daniel Patton has had for Cy Falls? I went back and looked over the record. I went and looked back over statistics. We've all kind of raved about him as a staff. When I look at him and the body of work that he's put in and where Cy Falls is at, I don't think that they're there without a player of his caliber. And so it's not necessarily a statistical thing. It's more of a true overall impact as far as what he brings to the table and what he allows others to be able to do on that roster. I think he just opens up everything along with doing what he's already capable of. And I just think, when you start talking about people like you mentioned with Isaac, with his ability, sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. Same situation with this particular kid that we're talking about because he can go out. He's a double machine. We just went and saw. He just had a unofficial visit over at UT. I mean, they're not just going to just come call a kid just for
Mhm.
nothing. And so obviously he can have a huge impact on the game. And you talked about Bryson Howard and his ability to kind of sometimes yield to others. I would put that same staple on this kid too.
Blue.
Well, I mean, if we're going to talk about uh, Co or throwing another name in there. I mean, Bo Ogden's at the
Yeah,
top of
has
my
to be.
list too. I mean, look at somebody that came in from the private school and just threw himself into the UIL ring at Austin Westlake, which the he just his transition has gone flawless, hasn't it? I mean, would they be in this position that they're going to be playing Judson? We'll get to that in a little bit without him. Like, this is a key player on one of the best teams year in and year out in the state of Texas, and Robert Lucero's utilized him in the right way, giving him the ball and just go out and win, but with structure, of course. But also, I think that when you put his numbers and you put up all of his stats, you can't look past, because we've been talking a lot about offensive stats. You can't go look past the intensity that he brings on the defensive end, how he can hit a gap, how he can get deflections, how he can get the ball and go in transition. There's a lot of there. Uh, 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 there's a lot just there that's obviously also going to translate to the next level at the high major as he goes to the University of Texas to play basketball. And there's so many guys out there, right? I mean, that's why you pose this question, Michael, is that we can probably still string along a couple of others, but when you look at the best of the best, I mean, this is one of the reasons why Westlake is successful.
And I think the Westlake thing, it didn't just happen overnight. They've had to fight, battle adversity. Like, they're non-district. Like, we saw them lose some heartbreakers at different
Yep.
tournaments and things like that. So it wasn't just like, oh, we got Bo Ogden now, we're gonna cruise. Like, there was some, not internally doubt, but you're looking at Westlake throughout the season. They battled in that district. It wasn't just like pencil them into the regional final. We picked them, but we knew they were gonna have to work, and Bo Ogden was gonna have to show that senior leadership. And the pieces started to come together, and here they are in the regional final. Uh, Moving on. Okay, so we have the regional final games. If you want to see those matchups, Lyndon did a great thing yesterday. It's sometimes it's easy to just be a good media person. And Lyndon last night waited for all the games to finish and just went down 6A, 5A, 4A, 3, 2A, 1A, and just listed the matchups. It's not that hard to be good at a job. And Lyndon, I give you credit all the time for doing the easy things. Sometimes people try to just talk a lot and just put the information out there, and you're doing
Yep.
better than most people in this space. But all right, if you only get one regional final game to watch, what are you picking? Blue, you just talked about Westlake, so you were going right back there against Judson. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, just real quick. I mean, the talking points is what we talked about this. Judson last time they went to state was 2014. Westlake 2018. Think of how rich those two programs have been with players, with the coaches, and so this is a matchup that already happened one time, I believe, at the beginning of the year. And Judson, did they lose by double digits, Tim? Maybe, but I
Correct.
think it's different. It's a different time of the year, and so to me that's a must watch. And then also, sorry, I couldn't just pick one, Michael, but the Birdville Denton's already beaten Birdville twice. Um, in each game, Denton was able to use their length, use their defense to shut down in one game uh, um, Sawyer Dotson, and then the next game Avery.
Webb.
Yes, Avery Webb. Thank you. And so now, how are they going to piece this together for a third time, Denton? You got to think that Anthony Holman has got to put together a game plan here that Birdville's going to win, take Denton to the limit here, because they're 0-2. And what does Michael Thomas do? What is Michael Thomas going to strategize here, and has to mix something up, or does he just say, "Hey, you know what? We beat you twice. We're not gonna change. We're just gonna be more efficient. We're gonna use our length. We're gonna use our athleticism, and you just have to prove that you can beat us." I think this is a really key matchup here in the state of Texas.
Man, there's a ton of those district. I mean, we talked about Alamo Heights and Vets Memorial meeting for the third time in a regional final. Those turn into just nasty. The crowds already know each other because you're like, oh, that was that dad last time that was talking all that chirping. They're starting to be familiar in the stands too, and it's going to give you something special. So yeah, all those district triple third rematches, man, I can't wait for those. Linda, go ahead and cook. I know you don't want to just give us one.
Yeah, I'm only going to pick one per classification because obviously I got to stay locked into small school through big school. But let's start in 6A, rematch of last year. Allen North Crowley, and just that game was so electric. Isaac Hayes was doing everything, but those seniors for Allen ended up getting them over the line. This is a game that's going to come down to the guards. Like, who can be better? Is it going to be Neo or is it going to be Isaac Hayes? I mean, the supporting cast, we know what all those players can do, but who can win that individual battle at the point guard spot between two of DFW's most electric playmakers? Probably going to be the difference here. Looking at 5A, Beaumont United, have been here so many times the last few years. Made it last year, won 2 back-to-back state titles earlier in this decade against Fort Bend Marshall, who's just so tough. Armani Theus was really good last night. The size they have inside, like this is going to be a old school, grinded out, one of those games that just made for playoff basketball. 4A, you got
real quick. Does it make you? It made me feel old when you just said that. I know Tim and Blue have been able to talk about decades prior that we've been covering. When you're saying earlier in the decade, I'm like, come on now. I mean, me and Lyndon have been doing it because I'm like, dang, that was earlier in the decade for sure. So we've been around too. That just made me feel old. All right, go ahead to 4A.
But yeah, 4A, Dallas Carter against Kennedale. Like, I mean, this is the matchup that everybody had picked to occur in the regional final round, where you have, Carter, who has just been a machine in the playoffs, just beating teams down. They were, I think it was like 60-15 late in the fourth against Athens last night, against the Kennedale team. Didn't play their best game, but did what needed to be done. Got to the fourth round of the playoffs, where these two teams, like, you got the electric playmaking of Trey Smith and Jacoby Lovings, Marion Hunter, Caden Eason, Shaq Kizzy, Red Jackson. Like, you should be very familiar with the supporting cast at Carter. Who can be the best player on the floor? We're going to see, but Kennedale, they've been there, done that. They won a state title last year. Carter, we talked about it off air, with like the amount of times that Carter's been almost there. The chance per year running into Faith Family every year. Last year against Kimball, where they came up just short of making it to the state tournament. This needs to be the year for them to break through, but they're going to have to do it against a Kennedale team that still has the throne claimed for them. So moving on to 3A.
Well, let me ask you something there about the Carter. Also, is that they also went against Silsby?
Yes,
that the game was like 110 to 100. It was something ridiculous.
103 to 100. It was a track meet.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in that one. But moving to 3A, Onalaska against Palestine Westwood. The third time we're going to get this game. They played twice in a week and split. The two highest scoring teams in the entire state. Onalaska's averaging like 85, Westwood's averaging 84, or vice versa. I can't remember. I flipped those two in my head. But just going to be an awesome game. Devin Viano against Kavion Bryant, like that matchup. It's going to be a packed house wherever they decide to play that one. Down to 2A, another rematch game. Bosqueville, Waco Meyer split their district series. Waco Meyer, obviously the 2A D1 defending champs, but Bosqueville trying to break through after they ended the Munster Hornets season last night in a heartbreaker. We'll take our football title, though. We're not going to complain about that too much. And then finally in 1A, Fayetteville versus Brooklyn, two teams that can really score it. The third straight year they're meeting in a regional finals. Fayetteville made news earlier in the year when they hit 43s in a game, set a national record. But Brooklyn can really score it with Landon Smith. So this one's going to be fun. And the winner of this one will have the inside track in the 1A D1 title race.
Shit, Lyndon. I mean, unfortunately, you don't know where Onalaska and Palestine Westwood are playing yet, so I can't give you an A+, but that was A performance. Me and Tim have the same one, so Tim, I'll set the stage and I'll let you finish it. Brennan and Steele for me is the answer. Last year, seeing the atmosphere in that game gave me goosebumps as being from San Antonio. I haven't seen a packed gym like that maybe since I played. But this year with the rematch, you have two different feelings of why I think it's going to be just as packed. You have Steele that wants their get back, and Steele's looking over there like, this is our time now. They don't have Kingston Flemings coming through that door. And then you have the Brennan side. We're like, crap, we didn't get it done last year to get all the way to state, and we're just as loaded. Something's gonna give. Steel doesn't know. Casual Steel fans probably don't know Brennan has some dudes over there that may be hungrier than ever and might have a better overall team than they did last year. And Brennan is probably like focusing on themselves, but they don't realize how pissed off Steel was from getting thumped last year. I think that plus the casual San Antonio fan is starting to immerse themselves back into the high school game even more so. I'm seeing more people from San Antonio hit me up being like, "Oh, I've heard of so and so over here. This kid." There's just more of an excitement and an energy in San Antonio that I think that we can replicate that vibe, and that's where I would want to be. Tim, are you going to be there?
Depends on where it is right now. Region 3, after seeing what they posted, it has me there. I'm a doubleheader guy,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
in all actuality, yes, I'm going to be at that one because I think it's the place to be when you start talking about who's going to represent Region 4 as the champion. You touched on it. There's a lot of factors in this one. Still wants to prove that they belong. This is their opportunity. Uh, are they ready to take that next step? They have some additional pieces that weren't there last year, and so they're new to the equation. And so, you can look at that situation and look at it from a perspective of, well, they're new, so they're a little bit inexperienced for the pieces that are coming to the table. Uh, but yet and still, they're credible pieces that can potentially be the difference maker. I mean, when you start talking about the most athletic kid in the region, yes, Justin McKinney's that. He is the most athletic kid in the region. I mean, if I'd be interested in hearing to see who would have an argument with that. Uh, been playing a lot better basketball. He has the ability to be able to shoot it, but also can get to the rim. But defensively is where he kind of makes his mark in terms of being a very, really, really good weak side defender and rebounder. And so he really kind of helps that team and provides something they didn't have last year. And I think Jamel Garland also, from a point guard standpoint, is right there what they had before um, in terms of a kid that can beat you in multiple ways, can shoot the three ball, can beat you off the dribble, but also is a really, really good defender. And so he understands how to play. He and Maurice Eddy have played together for a number of years with their club team, so they fully understand how and where each other's going to be. So when you start talking about overall chemistry, it makes them dangerous from that perspective. Then you add in, Jace Tolliver, who's been playing really well for them late. Is starting to get more minutes, and we've seen him in some next gen stuff. We've seen him in some of our, overall tournament venues where this kid here, he's a splash play waiting to happen. And he understands how to compete. He goes out and makes plays, that his team needs. And then you add in Logan Gonzalez, who caught fire last night, finished with a game high of 24, who just has the ability to really kind of stretch the defense and open up things. But he's one of those kids that has been a varsity 4-year start, or not a 4-year starter, but a 4-year letterman that, wants to be able to taste a little bit more from what they've been exposed to thus far. Then you have Brennan, who is now like saying, hey, like you said, we left a little bit on the table, a little bit of a sour taste in their mouth. They are eager to get back for what I would say unfinished business. When you talk to Cody Cowgill, he is straight business. He doesn't really kind of sugarcoat anything. He knows what they have to do. When you start looking at the potential opponent that they may see in Region 3, they have some familiarity with that region, having played in several tournaments down in that area before. So they're not balking at anything. And then when you talk about the talent level that they have, because they're different too. When you add in, Delano Tarpley, who comes back from his prep school term at every bit of 6'10" with his skill set, and then you add in Sean Montdragon, a transfer that came over that comes in that can provide them a spark off the bench. When I watched him play against San Antonio Johnson the other night, he came off the bench and, picked up on a lob attempt and then actually threw one himself, to somebody else. And so he understands fully how to play. He's been in this situation before at his previous school, being in regional finals. So that part of the aspect of knowing how to play in these type of situations. And then you have the X factor of Jacob Padilla, who we talked about before. Then you have the mainstays. When you start talking about Donovan Chris, you can't leave him off the table. He brings a lot to the table and can beat you multiple ways. It's such an ultra talented kid. But I was talking to somebody about him this morning. Just his poise level alone. I mean, no moment is too big for him. He fully understands how to get things done, when he needs to get them done. And then it, of course, opens up things for kids like Talon Todd and others. And then you have Isaiah Ward, who is the ultimate Swiss Army knife. He's going to come out. He's probably going to guard Steele's best offensive player, or whatever they feel like they want to take away. He's going to be able to do that. I mean, it's no secret. He's that good defensively. He's very, very good in the rebounding perspective and can actually score the ball and is an elite passer. So this is another kid that didn't play in that game. So you start talking about pieces that weren't there. These are pieces that now are in the fold that makes this a very, very interesting game to watch.
Man, y'all can't say GASO don't know ball. I'm just saying. Like, I mean, I might not know ball, but y'all three have been in your bag for this GASO cast. Before we get out of here, real quick, the way this segment was titled, let me just switch it. We haven't picked our state picks. We'll pick them after the regional finals. Did any of y'all internally have Seven Lakes as winning your state champion?
Yeah. But in my defense, let's rewind back to November 15th, 2025, where these two teams played, Atascocita and Seven Lakes. And I said, the winner of this game in the playoffs is going to be my 6A D1 pick to win a state title. So I'm just going to leapfrog on over to Atascocita, and we'll see what happens over the next 3 games for them.
All right, well, there you have it. Look at more stuff from our newsletter on Friday. And good luck to all the teams that continue to navigate the playoffs. And congratulations to hell of a seasons for teams that may have just finished their season yesterday and the previous weeks. You deserve all your flowers for a hell of a season. But until then, good luck. And we'll see you at state. Later.